So, a few years ago, I was on a boat and went on a trip and had this whole gift of poetry given to me. And while I was on this boat, I found this volume of poetry. And the volume of poetry was called The Return of the Fairies. And it was lavishly illustrated with these beautiful pictures of fairies, done by an artist called Saint Bridie, who's recently passed over to another world. Hopefully a better one. And the author of the words that Steve's pictures illustrated inspired me to get on this fairy poetry buzz. And it certainly inspired others. It was composed in 1999. So it's had enough time now to create something of a legend. But it's not a legend, it's a real poem composed by a real character, who I'm delighted to invite to stand in front of you now and hopefully recite from that work. So I'd be delighted if you would welcome back to Avalon, Kelfin Oberon.
Have a look at you, you've forgotten what all this looks like. Poetry speak for itself. Creation stories to begin with. Maybe 3 layers of creation stories. Before the beginning, and all that came after. A bit to begin with, a part before the whole. In the midst I call multi-dimensions, the story of one soul. In the time before time was created, creatrix loved to play, to breathe life into light and shine always. Time was created this way. All lights in this life came from one light. Before that, the darkness reigned. The first light was born out of darkness, and that was when everything changed. Unseen became seen in a bright white stream, delight of one, born out of naught. The shock of his birth brought joy and brought mirth in the heart of the mother of all. She laughed deep inside as she beheld her love child, and her whole being smiled with elation. The fun has begun, my first child, my son, father of all my creation. First light was flying in the midst of naught when suddenly began his very first thought. Who am I? Flying in the midst of all he felt, he could hear an answering call. You are the first light, the child of the night. You are the first love. Call you delight. Delight within darkness. In the beginning there was light. Before that there was only darkness. From out of the darkness was born delight, and delight was made out of darkness. Before the beginning there was darkness, and when light came, he came with a big bang. Wham bam, thank you ma'am, the child of darkness brought to life by the grace of Lady Love to live and grow, expand and change and play. In the beginning was duality, night and day. So, here I am, some chap driven mad in the head with thoughts going on. Trying to figure out who I am. Why am I standing here? Why did I stand here once upon a time? Why the questions? Why these false answers coming back from so many places? And that's what came to me anyway years ago, just like that, unfinished as it may be. That we'd come out of some unmanifest, and here we are all manifest, passing around rumours about how we got here, going into duality was unspeakable. Here I am, I can't speak. Clinging to light, and yet light is mortal compared to darkness. Clinging to light and fear, seek to shine our light in all directions, to cover all the corners so there's no fear left anywhere. Fill the world with ultra light these days, we blaze it out there, sending messages to the stars. Another bridging creation story. There were 13 dragons at the beginning of time, when the world was all made up of riddle and rhyme. 13 dragons, 4 kings and 9 queens, conjured up in the imagination the queen of unseen. And she in the centre, in the midst of all these dragons, she made up to cause the fall. Like flames within the fire, creatrix weaved forms of desire. 4 dragons fly in the face of fear, 9 dragons stay by creatrix to hear. She told them the reasons of why they were made, why the 4 flew away, why the 9 chose to stay. The former were favoured the gift of sight, the ladies were gifted the wisdom of night. The king dragon saw what creatrix had made, the bright morning sun, the deep darkling shade. Desires she made them, with the will to devour the fruits of the earth, the heart of her power. The women folk, wondering what they could not see, developed deep insight with the help of Queen Bee. She taught them remember always or all one, she taught them remember. Four dragons wandered down the ways of descent, devouring the fruit, the harvest of the earth as they went. They decided to dig deeper within. The king see only outside, not under the skin. Four dragons lay down, swollen, eaten so much, that drugged, like sleeping, and collapsed, couldn't handle their consciousness anymore. Got deadened, fell into dream. And we were inside of the dreams of these 4 fat dragons that didn't give up their power, couldn't see what it was that they weren't hearing. Inside in the imagination of these odd number of 13 dragons, in this odd memory of something that makes no sense to us modern day people. In our imaginations. Creation stories again, and they're closer to where we are these days. I gather I represent something from the words that I wrote those years ago in the book that went around with a life of its own and Steve's art and everything else. The book and the thing I represent is called The Return of the Fairies. It says something that fairies do exist. They're not little diminutive things. They've never been diminished. We're human. We've become mortal. Taken on the mortal ideas and forgot what it is to be immortal. We've forgotten how to play all day. We're not with our kids all the time anymore. We loan them out to these people for the few shekels so we can go and earn the few shekels because the kids get in the way of earning the shekels. We're all strapped to the shekels, wondering how are we going to do this? How am I going to embody this myth for these people through the intellect and words? I know what I'll do. Have babies. And then babies are big enough to fling around the place. See what fairies are in the human race. A ring a ding dong dell. Here is a tale for a fairy to tell. The Return of the Fairies by Kelfin Oberon, no longer deceased. From those who remember to those who do not, here is a little story for those who forgot. Of a race of fearless people, noble, strong, and bold, who live as one with nature and never would grow old. Sculptors of the landscape and servants of the lore, made into we folk by Christians, we were mighty gods before. Gods of myth and magic, of heroic deed and fame. A hero's fate may well be tragic, yet death is but a gain in a place before time existed. Before man's mortal minds were born, we built up mighty monuments amidst the hazel, oak, and thorn. We plotted all the seasons by the sun, the stars, and moon, and we built the very first temples, for we knew you would need them soon. For the day would come when we must pass on and give of our world to you. For it's there in the plan. Make time and space for the man to learn and to trust in the truth. So we left you and waited as your dreams accelerated, and we watched you and glad as your progress you grasped, and we listened in anguish at your foul use of language. But now we come to celebrate you as you learn to vibrate. Now we come to remind you of the beauty inside you. Now we come to invite you. We come to excite you, to help you remember to come apart. Tír na Nog, Old Irish, the land of youth, where people can grow old, where immortality lived, where no sin had ever occurred, where nobody could steal it, because everybody shared it. To help you remember Tír na Nog, the land of ever living, ever young. For know that now your time is fading, and we've had enough of your trading. For no longer is there room for your hungers to consume, for no longer are there moments for you to continue nature's torments. For now we, shining beings of love, come descending from above, from within, without, and forever, we are come together, forever, together, forever we have come. To recreate our world anew, to make all of our dreams come true. Children of light and Lucifer's babies, Templar knights and beautiful ladies, we've come back for our home, long stolen by Rome. We've come back to our womb, which you have called our tombs. We've come back with our birthrights, our blessings and songs. We've come back to remind you you've been sleeping too long. Release all your powers, release all your fears, release all of your anger. Make way for your tears. There is no need now for worry, or separation, or grief. The apocalypse is well and truly upon us now. Indeed, it may well have passed true. It is a sacred release. So make way for the true kings, the druids and queens, for we hold her powers, despite have been seen. For we hold her powers, for we are her dream. For we hold her powers, for we are the she. For we hold her powers, for we are the she. For we hold her powers, for we are the she. For we her powers are she. She comes from within and spreads without, and none can evade her, and none can avoid her. For she is creatrix, the mother